Okay, we're on.
Okay, right. So this format, laser pointer. Um,
Not here, buddy.
I don't know. Okay, so this is my obviously very, very quick and dirty. I haven't even done drop shadows, but you'll recognize it. So the thing that we were talking about yesterday, which I think, oh sorry, earlier this morning, I think you were trying to express was there's a core here that's the gap, but then there's how you use it and how it interacts. Now, here's my start for 10. So you got the JSON core standard, which is the.
All right, I'm just seeing a I'm just seeing
You
a
seeing
white
this?
screen there. Are you?
Yeah,
What are you
yeah.
seeing?
I'm seeing my screen.
Really? Can
Let me
you?
try. I'll stop sharing and try again.
Okay, great.
Does that work? I think we've got a bug. I think when this has happened before, if you share and then I take over from you, that seems to work for some reason. All right, now if I go take over, do you see that?
Yes.
Ah, who knows? Yeah, maybe it's the same
Computers.
feature.
Computer. Share screen.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Wow, we got a
but
like a
but
little three-dimensional fucking.
yeah,
Oh, because
but
it's like the diagram that I sent you.
yeah, yeah. I love that diagram because
Mm,
JSON Core Standard, bottom right. That's the thing we're talking about. That's the nobody's done this,
yeah.
and that enables
Right.
the next level up is the environment, which is like Deno or Git or the. What I've done is I've done like the dark side and the light side, so someone else chooses their services, crack on, and it may be that the case that we may share choices between those two, but they
Mm.
both depend on the JSON core. One level up, now we've got Dreamcatcher, but then we've also got Dark Dreamcatcher by someone else. Um, but again, they can call them the services, maybe they're similar. One level up from that, built on Dreamcatcher and Dark Dreamcatcher, we've got compliant naps. Now, the compliant naps, depending on a set of rules, should be usable between the two systems if they're compliant. Now, by compliance, you can add in, no kiddie porn, all that kind of thing. There's no reason why those two can't interact. And then the final level is a presentation layer, which is jitters. So forgive me, this is like, 10 minutes after you sent that, it's like, this is a really good way of putting it.
Uh, fucking looks about right. I mean, shit.
It's, and we could, tart it up and that sort of thing. But is there any,
Like,
what's your
how would
thoughts?
you? It's already 3D. That's pretty much it. So you're saying from the bottom up, you're saying that the JSON core standard is really just that's the NAP package format and concept, and
Yeah,
this API format of calling packages using JSON objects plus a file system.
right. It's a lingua
Um,
franca, basically. Yeah,
yeah, a basic, yeah, like a Rosetta Stone
yeah,
for programming code. And
yeah.
then you're saying that on top of that, we get an environment
Because
running.
otherwise it can't
Yeah, but
run.
there's a missing layer there, just one
Uh,
missing layer, which is to say there is a way to make a platform that hosts or an execution environment um, standard, because you could have naps and have no ecosystem, no registry, no hosting service, no anything like that. And
oh, so
so,
so the JSON core standard. Then there's an environment to run if you're
yeah,
going to do
which
this.
is sort of like it's sort of like saying that. So Ethereum, has the Ethereum virtual machine, which is the internal code standard, and then that's implemented in actual fact in several different pieces of software, which are all standard compliant. Actually, I'm gonna I'll finish this off and admit that it's a bad example, but then when you're running those each implementation of Ethereum, you can run it on any hardware that you like. You can pay people to run it for you, or you can take it offline and run it yourself. And so what I'm trying to say is that the JSON package standard is one layer, and then there's the environment, the execution environment of that package standard, and then there's our choice of services, because
Right.
that's actually pluggable. And the difference between a decentralized blockchain style piece of software and other pieces of software is that in a traditional piece of software, if you make this standard piece of software and then two different people run it, you've got two different things with two different ad campaigns, two different dev teams. But in a decentralized way, if two people run it and their protocols are, talk the same
Well, that's
language, you have one
yeah,
platform.
yeah. I agree. I agree with that. So there's the JSON core standard, and then there's the environment standard. The environment needs
Yeah,
to be
the
able
standard
to,
environment. Yeah, that's
yeah,
right. That's
needs to
right.
do
There's the
something.
standard environment. So there's the
Yeah,
standard package, and then the package has the standard environment, and then in the standard environment, you have implementations of which we supply one, but the whole point is that you can supply your own one, and it should just be one standard environment.
yeah. So long as it's compliant. So
Yeah,
let's imagine we add in that extra layer. So JSON core standard, then
yeah,
environment standard,
yeah,
which is that it could be on the same level. I think it's probably one up from JSON, isn't it? And then one up from there is our choice of the our use of environment. So long as
yeah.
we agree with the standard,
The
someone else
metal,
chooses
the
other
metal that
things.
we supply to run this standard
Yeah,
environment on. Yep.
and that one that's a bit of a mix and match because maybe they use Deno or maybe they
You
use SQL
could run
or
all
you
kinds of things. And in
right.
fact, my current preference is actually Firecracker, which is a
Great. Yeah.
beautiful thing that I will walk you through very quickly if there's time later, because I think you'll wet your pants over it. But
Cool.
Dino for
I do love soiling myself. Yeah.
Dino is definitely the way to run the JavaScript environment, but the standard environment needs to handle Python, Rust, all these other kinds of things. So
Right. So the point is, by defining an environment, in terms of the environment must be able to do this in order to express the JSON core
yeah,
standard.
yeah,
You are free to choose something that hasn't even been invented yet, and it's
yes,
currently in someone's bedroom.
correct.
So now split it to show that, and it's like okay, so our choice of environment services, the ones you've gone
Yep,
through, someone else chooses other things. They may share choices, but the services don't actually link up
yep.
at that level.
And they
Um,
can go offline too, so they can disconnect and they can
yeah,
still run. It's a holographic system. You can cut a piece off, and you got the whole hologram with you.
exactly. Right now, the interesting stuff gets one level up. So we are building Dreamcatcher
Yep,
using our choice of environment services based on the environment standard, based on the
yep,
JSON standard.
yep,
And we're hoping people like that. Now,
yep,
I've just gone with Dark Catcher, which is like,
yep.
our evil twin.
Right.
Um, now, they both depend on their own services, but I've not written. Sorry, I've not drawn this in there. Oh, no, I have right. So you got the environment. The environment is there to produce and run naps on the standard. So Dreamcatcher is nice. Darkcatcher is nasty. You go one up, then you've got this dotted line here, which is compliant naps. So if Darkcatcher happens to produce a nice catcher app, um, or vice versa, then you should be able to use naps between those two. So you're actually expanding it. So say if there's a competitor and
So
they
long as your
produce naps,
protocol compatible, you can still be part of the network. There's
yeah,
no
and you also might want to put something in there like we don't like Nazis or whatever, you know.
You can do whatever
Um,
you want, and there'll be
yeah,
LLM semantic firewalls that allow people to form these psychometric groups where they sort of identify around a particular moral stance, and the LLM enforces the gateway. But
exactly.
it's like the fact that Iran still has an internet connection, and so does Israel, and
Yeah.
it's
Oh
like
yeah.
there's limits to what traverses between those two countries in
Yeah.
terms of their net connections, but
Yeah.
and they've got different degrees of firewalls, and
And
that's just how it is.
we're effectively in a proxy war with Russia, but we're still buying titanium from them. Yeah.
They got good
Uh,
titanium, right?
oh,
And
yeah. So that dark, you see that dark, that's meant to be an arrow, dark to Dreamcatcher, and Dreamcatcher to dark. So long
mhm.
as it's compliant and that
As long as the
firewall is
protocol's
agreed
there,
with,
yeah, yeah, that's
you
right,
can run it.
that's
And
right, that's right.
there's a choice there about which environment. So one down it runs on, but it doesn't really matter.
It should be compatible with all, so long as you use the standard environment.
Right.
Because this starts to look a lot like what an operating system does to like all that's really happened that we've only just caught sight of is that all of the different programming languages are actually akin to all the different pieces of hardware that used to be around in the x86 days when computers first came around. And then
Well, that's
someone
an
turned
interesting.
up and was
Yeah,
like, let's standardize the whole thing, and then we'll make applications that have a standard target, and we'll package them up, and we'll make.
that's a really good point because effectively what we're talking about is a compiler for NAPs. So if you had a certain chip, you had to run an assembly. Another chip, different assembly. So someone decided, oh, let's write an imperative language that just compiles to the assembly. So it doesn't matter. So now you can run the same piece of software on two different chips. Similar
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
So you got you got compliant naps there. Now, the last part I admit is a bit raggedy. So at the user level, so say someone is presented with the Dreamcatcher portal where you actually type in stuff and you got that 3 box loveliness, and someone does a dark version where the right hand box is on the wrong side and it's upside down or whatever.
Yep, yep.
Um, so that's the user's choice. But the naps that actually create that um, are agreed at the lower level. So you could have dark naps, nice naps.
Yep, it's
Um,
not our business what your
yeah,
naps do. We
yeah,
we will
that's
present a curated list of naps according to us, and we
yeah,
will form a psychometric group that values the same things we do, and we'll have this
yeah. Now
group.
the loveliness about this, because when you sent that over, it was just like, of course, because we've defined everything as an app, including gateways. The gateway to APIs for the NAPs is really just down. Okay, so our gateway is going to be Dreamcatcher Gateway Dark. DC can have into the dark web whatever they want
Mm,
in terms of APIs. That comes down to policy really,
yeah,
um, and
it's not our business what you do with it. Just don't you come bringing your dirty shit on our side of the wall.
right, exactly. And so we have that dotted line, which is a like policy firewall. It's
Yeah,
like, do you agree
yeah.
with our policy? Yeah, in that case, we should be able to use your NAP.
Mm,
But then, the use of that NAP, uh, we should pay you for, or you should register a contribution. Probably, I would imagine, say if Nice DC pulls in an app from Dark DC, it still runs it on its own.
It runs it in its own environment. That's the difference
Exactly.
of Naps, is that you're in
Yeah.
control of the execution environment, and
Which means, which means everything we were saying about billing and so on.
yeah,
That's 1, 2, 3, ignoring the extra layer that you
yep,
just made.
yep, yep.
That's the billing layer. So everyone has their own billing layer, and they can charge nothing, or they can charge $100 a token.
Yeah,
Doesn't
and
matter.
so and the social experiment is to say that, will people pay if you generate a fair algorithm that you can interrogate to your heart's content that tells you you should have paid this much, but no one's gonna arrest you if you don't.
Right now, at the let's say the Dreamcatcher is the one we know and love, where everyone gets paid transparently and fairly, and so on. And Dark Catcher is the way that everything goes to Satan.
We'll call that capitalist, the capitalist duck catcher.
Yeah. At the point of the user level, you got a portal, and it's like you could, if the naps are compliant, in this, you could choose,
Yep.
nice Dreamcatcher or dark Dreamcatcher,
Yep.
depending on what you feel
Yeah.
like, but you get the same experience.
That's right. There are certain ecosystem constraints that will usher you towards staying on whichever side you chose to stay on, dark or light, because the ecosystem is not just all naps that you can run, it's also services that you consume. And if those services have a policy that says we're not serving unless you've paid your dues, then
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I was thinking about this. There needs to be some kind of policy inheritance here. JSON Core Standard has no policy; it just is. Services will have their own T's and C's. Those T's and C's need to be
this
agreed
is
by
getting, I
Dreamcatcher
think
and
this
so on.
at this point, this is clearly too far into the weeds to
Well,
this is
what I'm
this is
saying
just
is the solution to that seems bleedingly obvious. You create the
Yeah.
policy of any service
So-
that you consume as an app, and you test it.
sure, sounds great. Too far in the details. This is like the lowest detail that we should be thinking at right now for our planning, because all what you've done here is described the central blob, and now we need to position it amongst all its other entities that it has a relationship to, and we need to pick what's the minimum version that we can make that can allow us to accelerate and bring on a wider audience to the system.
Well, also, we need to think about where the funding goes. So let's say we take the happy path. There's no dark path here. So we've got JSON Core, then the services to pay for, and therefore we need billing, etc., etc. And then we've got Dreamcatcher, which we're happy with. Then we've got Naps, which is like CRM, and then we've got the user, which is widgets and all that nice stuff. So we can go through the happy path on this.
Just focus on the happy path. Yeah, man. Let's just focus on the happy. Don't even. The dark path is like not our concern just now.
Yeah, and I probably shouldn't call it the dark path. It would be alternative views. There's more than one way to skin this, but what the cutoff is, everyone has to agree that they're going to abide by the rules of the JSON format, and the extra layer of the environment requirements. And
Okay,
that's
so
it.
we're
You agree with that?
right. So where to now?
Well, for a start, I need to tidy this up because that was done in a bugger's rush. Then, I guess if we're focusing on the happy path, then there's going to be a whole bunch of services like Stripe and
Privy.
Here's a good here's a good question. Where does the gateway company fit into this diagram? I hadn't thought of that actually. Or because this is an engineering diagram, not a legal diagram. Or is that a
Weird.
different thing? Is like, do we do a big red dotted line around the happy path and say it's controlled by the gateway company?
No, the gateway company is one participant inside of the Dreamcatcher slot, because that Dreamcatcher slot it's really the payment incentive layer. It's the incentives layer, and incentives mean politics, contracts, that kind of thing. And so at
Yeah.
that layer, that's where the corporate, the gateway company sits, I think.
So is that effectively we could express that as under our choice of environment services, as in we need
Like
we
like
could
just yeah,
one
so
leg
just like
down.
how we chose Deno, and
Yeah.
more than we chose Deno, we also chose our instance of Deno as opposed to some other guy's instance.
Yeah.
We would choose our instance of the gateway company, because the gateway company just simply looks like a hosting service.
Oh, okay. Sorry, just a sec. Can you give me 2 seconds? That's
Sure,
Jake
no
calling
worries.
in about the
Yeah, no worries. The
sick
feline,
cat
the
thing. Yeah.
complication. Yeah.
All right. 2 seconds.
Help. I can come off and come back on. Alright, okay. Wow, okay. Let's see what happens. So observe for a while. Yeah. Yeah. I've never seen okay, well, he's in the right place. There's nothing more for us to do for the first time. Yes, please. All right. Okay. Yeah, just go ahead. Yeah. Can you do me a favor? Sorry, yeah. When after your part, can you send me the number of the event so it doesn't come up as an unknown or a random callback?
Hey, right, back in the room.
Hey,
Uh, turns out either the cat has got an infection or has been in a fight.
really?
Either way,
Was that the
he's been
cat
in
that you had a altercation with?
Yes, it's the one that gets in fights a lot. So, where are we? So, yes, your thing was, well, my question was, where does Gateway
Yeah. So
go?
the gateway looks like it's just the same as our choice of environment services, and
Yeah,
it's
environment services are external.
external
Uh,
services of some kind. Now, some of them are
yeah,
essential to the operation of the standard environment, and
yeah,
others are how do you say it? Not like, like there's no way to really strongly connect a company to some data on the Dreamcatcher except for our solemn promise and some some legal repercussions if we go against it. So it's not the same as running on Deno, but it's the same kind of concept that
it's the
it's a
same
standard
level, isn't it?
service. Yeah.
And we can require, for example, we can
But like
require
the same as a
we
weather app.
require a license, even if you say the license is I own everything, screw you, or the entire world can use anything that is built on the level up. Where does licenses go in? Is that the right level for licenses? It's a similar thing
Look,
to Gateway, isn't it?
I don't think licenses really.
I
I
think
think
it,
that's
I think that's
outside of
it.
the scope of this data.
Yeah. My guess is it's inside the Gateway.
I think that you could go on forever talking about all the different components and bits and pieces, but I think that this is as much detail as you need to do the job of looking out.
Yeah. Now, what this does imply, so you see, you've got user level app in 2.
Yep.
Some use dark apps, some use nice apps in order to get jitters, with all that good stuff.
All right. So we're gonna just ditch the
So with
whole
these,
dark side and just consider a standard
well,
user
no,
app using the happy path.
for now, yeah. But a question for later is some kind of
All right. Let's not worry about questions for
agreement.
later. Let's not
Yeah,
worry about questions for later.
yeah. If we go happy path, we don't need that.
Just do happy path. Yep.
But if we're saying
We're
for
not
the rest
saying.
of our go for
Yeah.
it,
Yep. Just happy path. That's all we need.
yeah. In which case, is there anything else other than the level that you mentioned about
No, dude.
the standard for ends?
No, that's it. I would indicate multiple user level apps to indicate how many there are, and
yeah, I could do a big cloudy thing, or whatever.
and I would ditch that chunk in the middle, like the thing that you've got user level app, and then it has an arrow down. What is that bar, that piece? What is that?
Which one, the user level one or the NAP one?
One level down from user level apps.
That is the user asks for something to happen, and the level down constructs and discovers the naps that are needed and compiles them and then
is that the jitter level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, actually,
you
is it the
haven't.
jitter level?
Well,
Do we need an extra level?
I don't. Is it? It's all jitters. Like it's jitters from the standard environment is the jitter environment.
Yeah, but there is where in that case would the NAP library go? Say,
I think that's part of the standard environment.
Our choice of environment services or the Dreamcatcher tier.
I think there's one level up from our choice of environment services, because the Dreamcatcher runs inside of the standard environment, and the Dreamcatcher runs as a peer to the other naps that are running on the platform.
So the Dreamcatcher environment offers up. That's where, for example, the NAP library would go, and discovery
Yeah,
and
yeah,
testing.
yeah. Because the standard environment doesn't have incentives. The Dreamcatcher
Yeah.
environment is the standard environment plus incentives.
So by standard environment, you mean the choice of using the JSON core standard, the agreeing to the environment standard, and then choosing to use the JSON and compliant environment that meets the environment requirements in order to express a thing called Dreamcatcher.
That was way too convoluted. I think that's right, but I think you looped back on yourself a couple times there.
Okay, whereabouts?
What? So the Dreamcatcher environment is composed of the standard environment that is running on some choice of services
Yeah.
that is executing the JSON core standard.
Right.
But
and,
it is an execution environment that is decorated with incentive management. So it's not.
Right.
I
So
think it's
these-
important to separate out the pure standard environment, and then say that, to be honest about it, the Dreamcatcher, you could just take the standard environment and run off with it. That's fine. This is important and messy what I'm about to try and say.
Okay.
If you took the standard environment and you went off and ran it using a corporate structure like a public company or a private company or whatever, that is the incentive layer that you have chosen to wrap the standard environment in. The Dreamcatcher is simply our choice of wrapping the standard environment in an incentive layer that we have chosen. And so,
right. So this is. Sorry, go on.
please a moment. The difference, the gamble and the difference is that we actually think that the Dreamcatcher incentive model will outpace the corporate incentive model.
Yep.
But that remains to be seen, and we need to keep those two things separate because they are separate.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so what we've got is there's the JSON core standard, and there's you need an environment that expresses these kinds of services. Otherwise, you get nowhere.
Yep.
We've chosen these services, and we're agreeing with the JSON environment, and we've
Yep.
written Dreamcatcher on top of that. Dreamcatcher is where attribution lives, for example.
That's right. And Dreamcatcher is a NAP that consumes services from the standard environment to deliver its refined information, which is attribution.
Yes, but we could do anything inside of that, but we're choosing to do the happy path, and
Yep.
we know the happy path.
Yep.
And so that is where we put things like, even our test runner NAP, because we can dictate what people want with tests. We can possibly put in the discovery. That's a bit of a grey one.
No, it's not.
Definitely
It's
put
not.
in the stuck loop.
All of those things. The stuck loop is part of the Dreamcatcher, that's for sure. But all these other naps, they're part of the standard environment. A lot of that stuff.
So discovery is one of the requirements of the JSON core. Then is you advertise, which could be 0, but you advertise naps that can be interrogated for their utility.
Yeah.
And can be consumed.
Yeah. And then the adornment of the Dreamcatcher layer is that you can discover things that don't exist yet and cause them to be. Whereas the standard environment is a very mundane type of a discovery. It's like it's either there or it isn't. And how you do the discovery is a NAP in itself, free to be experimented with and modified. It's what the standard
Right.
environment gives you is a way to actually walk all the data, and then you're free to compose your own NAP to say how you would like to filter, sort, and transform that data.
Well, exactly. So in the God, no laser pointer. I'm just going to point your fingers.
You can
so
use your
under
mouse.
Oh, okay. That's an embarrassingly simple solution. Okay, inside of here, we would have the Dreamcatcher Discovery NAP. Now, the what would we inside of that can discover all the naps inside of the Happy Path. Now, bear with me on this example. So instead of Dark Path, let's call this Corporate Path. So Corporate Path wants to.
I don't want to bear with you on this example. You're too far in
That's
the
a really
weeds.
good example.
No,
That's a
you're
really
too far in the weeds,
it's
buddy.
really- oh,
You
man,
keep
I'm
going
just-
down. You keep going
know,
down. Stop going down. We're trying to get up. This is the floor. You keep going below the floor. We're trying to get
I know,
above it.
I keep on trying to solutioneer. I know.
Yeah.
I've been told this many, God knows how many times.
We need
Okay,
to get
right.
up because we got to figure out what we're going to do for funding.
Okay, so the funding part then is right. This JSON core. The argument is here is an example of how it can be used. Happy Path, and then this can be used in all sorts of ways. That is going to be awesome.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
the
So
kind of
we're saying
growth.
that the JSON core standard is a missing feature of the technological ecosystem.
Yeah.
It can't be controlled by anyone, but it can be delivered first. And we
Yeah.
would dearly love it if we could deliver it first alongside the Dreamcatcher.
Right. Now, here's the interesting thing, though, right? So it's like, if I was an investor, it's like, okay, so where's my pointer gone? Oh, fuck's sake.
How did you lose it? I mean, you fucking.
It's just because I've been stroking the side of my
That's
laptop
why you can't
instead
have
of my,
nice things.
touchpad.
You just.
So from investors, like, okay, so you guys are doing all the work, building JSON core and the environment standard. You've chosen this, and you're going to do Dreamcatcher. That all sounds great. And you've got your income stream here, but the growth, I think, comes in this trading between naps, all completely disparate. So if someone sets up a new thing now, say, please bear with me because this is interesting. I think, say that a big corporate says this is a good idea, and sets up this dark path, gets to this point, and thinks, actually, you guys have solved 80% of our problems, so we want access to your naps. So then there's this trading piece here, which is the growth, as well as the growth on this side. I think that would get them excited. So it's not just one end level, stack that we're doing. It's like if anyone else wants to build their own stack, then we trade in the usage of naps, and we'll figure out how to pay for that between them. If you had 100 dark catchers out there, we are trading naps that have already been built because they don't want to build them, right? And you just take a toll every time one nap is used with another one based on that firewall dotted line.
Look, that ain't wrong. It just doesn't matter. And the reason I say that.
Investor, though. Sorry, go on.
No, I think they can eat a dick, basically, because we can't build it any other way. Like, we can spend endless hours trying to come up with answers that satisfy people that, there's a moat, there's protection, this is why you'd put your money in and all that. We don't have the time, and we can't build this any different way. Like,
no, this is this is my point. It falls out. There's no additional thinking to be done, because a nap is, by the fact it's a nap, it is compliant. and you can give an app to someone else, and they run it. Now all you've got to do is just work out the legals. That can be done. That's
What
not
is
our problem.
what does compliant mean to you?
To this, a NAP agrees with the JSON core standard, has the services that are available on an environment. There's a choice of environment variables. Maybe you go through Dreamcatcher, maybe you go through IBM, but it doesn't matter, because at the point of a jitter, all NAPs can be run. Doesn't really matter how they're run or how they're chosen or how
So they're
incentivized
protocol
and so on.
compatible.
Yeah.
Okay, and what is the point of what you're driving at that you keep
point
on
I'm-
insisting on
the
this?
point I'm driving
thing?
at is if we didn't do that, we'd end up in silos. But by having NAPs tradable in it, whatever way, I'm not even going to talk about how, but if NAPs are compliant in one part that's compliant all the way down, and another part that's compliant all the way down, or 100, then you dedupe. You don't repeat effort.
Yeah,
It's
so
like,
why
oh,
does that matter in the context of us trying to lift up so that we can understand how we fit into the world and who are our primary participants? How does that help us?
It helps us because someone might come up with a better Dreamcatcher and produce better NAPs because of it. And we'd want to use those NAPs.
Okay. So how do we get to the next level up from this diagram?
Right, good question. Other than doing the edits that we want.
I don't think you should do the edits, because I guarantee you what will happen is you will get sucked into the details again. This is the
No.
ground floor, and we are trying to get up.
I've got a new rule. What I really need to do is stay up for 24 hours, get you to send me an idea, and after a conversation, and then spend 5 minutes on a piece of paper. That seems to be the most successful way to get stuff. So, yeah, if I want anything actually practical, that's the way to do it.
All right. Well,
so
since
the
you said the magic words, I don't know, so I'm going to share something on the screen.
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
Welcome to Firecracker. This is the thing that
Firecracker. Yeah.
this is the thing that runs AWS Lambda under the hood, and this is the preferred way. I mean, we'll probably start with like an AWS Lambda prototype, but this is by far the most efficient way to run multiple languages or multiple. This is the best way to do functions as a service.
I think I've come across this before, but it's
Yeah.
a while back, I think.
So the diagram is actually what I want to show you here, in that we want the standard environment to look like this, and then the NAP is the workload.
Okay, let me adjust this. So guess also containing workload involves those things. Okay. So let's take this. So now we're introducing a level of detail below. So RESTful API, network, storage, that all comes into that environment slab. That I think you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
All that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
is the next thing to take each of those slabs and do a similar thing to this, and then refer it back to why anyone should care?
No, sorry. I think I've led us down the wrong path. This is not. This is more. This is just a different way to look at the same detail at the same level.
Right.
Where do we go from here? Okay, I don't know either then.
Well, I'm living right now, as you can tell, that stacked 3D diagram. I can see that, which is now on its side. You need to rotate. Can you? Oh, yeah. Yeah. There you go. Hey, upside down. Oh, you know, one of the most interesting things I ever did was stuck a map of the world upside down on the wall. It's amazing how much you learn. So, JSON Core Standard, right, is a thing. Inside of that, there's all sorts of detail,
Yeah.
right? You could fill that to your heart's content. The choice of services, sorry, the environment also at that level. Choice of services are arbitrary. We could just give the example at that. So it's the environment and the standard, JSON standard is the thing. Choice of services, here's how it could be used, one way it could be used. And here's Dreamcatcher, this is what you could use it for. And here's a bunch of naps that you can run if you use that. And here's a bunch of JITs at the user level that will be actually useful.
Yeah.
Happy path.
And now what? Now what?
Well, my question is really, on that environment level, layer.
You need
if
to
we only
when
go with
we
the
need
happy
to we need to like put in. There's like there's things like users, right? Like there's builders, consumers, funders, and builders, consumers, funders. Who else?
Well, no, these are all aspects of the Dreamcatcher, right? You could be a billionaire and just say, I'm going to build this using exactly that format and say, I'm just going to give it all away for free and I'm not going to pay anyone. So these are choices we made in Dreamcatcher, builders, consumers, funders. It could be nobody gets anything. Just do it. Which would be, like, I don't know.
Yeah, what's
style of Dreamcatcher.
Yeah, what's your point with that though? Like, what are you trying to?
The point is, it doesn't change the diagram because we've already got the Dreamcatcher in there, and we've already got the implication that Dreamcatcher is one way of using this standard, which is the real cool bit.
Right, but then what we're doing is we're taking this entire diagram and making this the central blob in a context diagram, and we're gonna then fan out and say what are all the things, the external entities that we rely upon, and what is our relationship with them.
Yeah, but this is if you go down to the diagram again. So what we're saying is JSON core, nobody touches. Environment requirements, nobody touches, right? Then now we're talking about choice of environment services, Deno, JSR, and so on.
Yeah.
So at that point, we can explode out our use of this environment and JSON standard.
No.
No?
No.
Because we don't want to...
No. That's not... You're contorting the purpose of the diagram. Because this is an architectural diagram, and you're trying to make the context diagram be just simply one layer, one little piece within it. It's almost like...
Actually, to disagree slightly there, I'm struggling to see, other than slicing it down the middle and saying there is only the happy path and adding in your environment layer, I can't see what to add to this.
There isn't anything. There's something to be taken away, and I think you need to take away this choice of services here, because the choice of services actually doesn't belong in this diagram, I don't think, because the Dreamcatcher depends on the standard environment, which depends
Yeah,
on the
okay. Yeah,
JSON
yeah,
core
yeah.
standard,
I agree with that.
and
I agree
and
with
that
that.
none of these implementation or instances actually matter because the NAP can be provided,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
you know.
your environment layer is actually if you smush that choice, remove the word choice and say
Yeah,
environment
and
service.
just call that standard environment.
Yeah, and then slice it down the middle for the happy path only.
Happy path only. Yep.
I can't see what to add to that other than now we're
Nothing.
going to
But
talk about.
this whole thing, this whole piece of paper becomes the center of what's at the center of the context diagram, and then we start plugging in all these other items in various ways into that diagram, and with this at the middle, because
some
this is
reason.
just
Oh, that's weird. Verizon wanted me to quit there. I think it probably, yeah, making a choice there. You need to stop, Maxwell. Right, okay, so that second layer up is actually just poorly named, smushed together down on the JSON core level because JSON and environment makes sense, right?
yeah. And it's
Then
all just
next
targeting
level
a
up.
standard. It's all just targeting a standard protocol. It's not actually strictly a running instance, but we as a group of people will make it a running instance by making some choices for hardware and
Yeah,
funding
sure.
and
Yeah.
all that, right?
And even, right down to, well, Deno or let's get some tin. Doesn't
Yeah,
really matter. Doesn't
yeah, yeah,
affect any of this.
yeah. But what we need our context diagram to describe is that we're about to make those choices. This thing is what we want to bring to life, but we're about to make some implementation choices.
Right.
Like,
Okay. So what you're saying is, with all the splits and etc., that is the center blob. So when we're talking
yeah,
about the blob,
yeah.
this is what we're talking about.
When someone
Now,
says, "What is the Dreamcatcher?" you're like, at its heart, this is it. This
right.
thing.
So then the drill down is, well, okay. So what are you guys doing? Then Dreamcatcher, which assumes everything below it, now talks about everything above it. So then there'll be a similar thing where there's Dreamcatcher app. A NAP is now this standard of being Dreamcatcher because we've just said it so and we've put a stick over it. And then everything above that is a similar kind of diagram. Maybe we could do a blob diagram if you don't like the 3D, but I love the 3D. But everything above it is what we need to explain once we've explained the. This is an.
Well, no,
So,
no.
oh, it's I, isn't it? I mean,
I
how
think
else would you
this
do it?
diagram sits in the middle as describing what it is that we are building, but then attached to it are the implementation choices that we're about to make, like Deno deploy, like the gateway corporation, like
Right.
the npm registry. These are external things to this diagram. This diagram is our internal stuff. It doesn't have anything to do with it. It just gets left
Well, here's a
alone.
good here's a good test. So we did that list earlier on,
This one.
which is this list here.
Yep.
Where in the step diagram do each of these go? I suspect most of them are going to go into the Dreamcatcher, slab. Let's call it. Some will go into the NAPs. So, for example, the Dreamcatcher app. If you go up a bit, Gateway is going to go into the Dreamcatcher slab.
Hang on a minute. Hang on. Just let me think. I think I see what you're saying about that the external entities here get connected to a particular slab in this diagram. Is that what you meant?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Okay.
because
All right.
because there's a standard, we have to agree with the standard. So we don't.
Yeah.
Having shown the standard is like, let's assume that. But
Yeah.
now we're only talking about Dreamcatcher. Happy. Plan.
Okay. Great. I get you now. I misinterpreted that from you. So to where to attach, let's go through them one by one. This will be painful, but
Let's do
worth it.
No, now's a good time.
Let me try and move this fucking thing.
Yeah. So I'd have created this PowerPoint slide, but it would have taken 2 days.
How do I move it to be? You know what I want. You know what I want.
Yeah, you kind of want to have this whole thing in Miro, and so you can scroll over it, or something like that.
God damn it. You know what I want.
You know what? Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay. You want arrows?
I think I'm gonna go insane. I'm just gonna... I don't know what to do about this anymore. Anyway,
Well, can I give another stab at this, because
I'll just do it by
Jen-
hand. I got it here. I know how to do it.
you got it? Okay, because it's getting relatively late your time, and I am as tired as a fucking Cornish coal miner right now. So,
A Cornish coal miner.
but I think I know what you're talking about. Is where we so earlier on we listed a whole bunch of things as like, where do they go and how do we explain it?
Okay, so let me run it very quickly.
Yeah, do it by voice instead of trying to draw arrows and stuff.
What the fucking shit? Does it think I'm holding the control key? Oh, God almighty. Okay, sorry.
Right.
External entities. So Deno deploy would go at the standard environment layer, because it's what our offering of a standard environment would depend upon.
Oh shit! How picky do you want me to be?
Not
very
picky.
Okay.
Not picky.
I'll go to not picky mode. Right.
The
Engaging.
JSR package registry would go at this at the NAP level. The NAP. Yep. The NPM package registry there as well. Crates IO Rust language registry would go there too.
Mhm.
Gateway Corporation would go at the instance of the Dreamcatcher.
Yep. Agree.
Artifact and the Artifact standard library actually is the standard environment,
Yes.
as well as some of them end up here.
Is that? Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of is, but kind of not. But I'm not being. Picky,
Yeah,
so.
like it does. It does actually go here, but it is also here as well. Corporate.
I'm non-picking mode, so I'm not going to.
It's not helping to be picky. We're trying to get out of this
Pickiness.
pickle.
Yeah.
Corporate resellers, that would be at the user level.
Yep. Agree.
Corporate users would be the same as well. Execution suppliers would be a switchable alternative to Deno deploy.
That'd be the environment. Yep.
Hosting provider service is a duplicate, I think, of execution supplier. It's really just saying that execution supplier is an interface, a marketplace, and that
hosting is one instance of what an
So actually, I think what we would have is execution suppliers would be the box that goes around all of the external services that run the standard environment.
Yep.
And then you'd have an arrow going from the execution suppliers to our instance of Deno deploy, because
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
It's nested,
that's
isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a marketplace. We want it to be switchable. Here's our starter for 10. If
Yeah.
you don't like it, please compete with
Go
us.
ahead.
And 5 years from now, maybe Deno version 2 is
Yeah.
called Nano.
OpenAI
Just-
API would be at the NAPS layer.
Wouldn't that be? That's an interesting one. Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes.
Okay.
I was about to say, wouldn't it be an execution supplier? But
No, that's a NAP. That's just a NAP.
it's a NAP, isn't it?
The Privy.io for authentication is, I think it's at the standard environment level because that's identity.
Well, the requirement, in the same way we've got the requirement for execution suppliers, Privy is an execution supplier.
No, Privy is an identity supplier. So
No,
that's
but
actually the
inside of execution suppliers would be you have to have an identity authentication supplier,
no,
and we've chosen Privy.
no, you don't. You can be a hoster where all you're dealing with is the cryptographic signatures in the standard environment. Identity supplier is one that maps you to the real world. Execution suppliers map theoretical execution to real world execution. Identity suppliers map real world identity to virtual or theoretical
Okay,
identity.
so Privy is an instance as our choice to use Privy.
Yes,
But the requirement is you have to have an identity supplier.
that's right. That's right.
Just have someone say-
The standard environment needs to participate in the standard environment. You need to have selected an identity supplier.
Yeah.
Multiple identity suppliers can work in cooperation in the standard environment. So user A can choose Privy, user B can
Well,
choose
you need one or more, right? And
yeah.
it's up to you to figure it out.
yeah. But the standard environment, it's about what you choose to accept as an acceptable identity supplier. And that's really what starts to form these clusters of cooperating participants.
You're onto something here. So there's a distinction between execution suppliers, runtime, identity suppliers. Can be whatever you choose, but you have to have an identity supplier. You have to have an execution supplier.
Yeah.
What's the difference between hosting provider service and execution supplier? That sounds very similar.
There isn't.
Okay, cool. And OpenAI API is simply if you choose to create an API gateway app, which is we choose to do that because not because it's easy, because it is hard.
So that would
don't
be
have to do that.
OpenAI would just be one of the API gateway.
Right. And Privy would just be an example of identity supplier. And then the other one that's obvious is I don't know what you call it, commerce, payments, or whatever. Of
Payments,
which Stripe is one choice.
Yep. You need payment.
Or I don't know what you call it, value. Basically, you could stub it out if you wanted to. If you don't, then you need to put something in there.
Yep.
And like what you're saying, you could have multiple payment suppliers if you want.
Yeah, and whatever you select as a bundle of identity, payment, and execution needs to be compatible. Like they have a lot of relationship between them. Like Stripe won't be your payment processor unless you're operating in a certain way.
Yeah, but that comes down into environment standard. You're saying the standard of any payment supplier has
No,
to be.
no. There's the standard
Oh,
environment.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
The
You're
standard
right.
environment doesn't choose or distinguish between any of them and splits them out because they have no relationship with each other. But in the real world, our instance causes there to be a limitation between how we choose those suppliers.
But the environment standard says you should state what your payment supplier is, and your payment supplier could be Stub. Don't care.
Yep.
So, but it does need to be inside of the environment standard, because without that, there's no hook on when we get further up. If someone has Stripe, someone has Barclaycard or whatever, there's no way of interacting as we.
Yeah. There is, but it's limited. That's all. Like you can
Well,
observe each other at the very least. You can be like, oh, that guy's on
Yeah, but
Barclaycard, or
it's off system, isn't it? And yeah, you could do
no,
that.
it's on system because I could, as a user, you could pay with Barclaycard and I could pay with Stripe, and I could see you, and we go to do some commerce, and I'm like, oh, you've only got Barclaycard, and I'm like, yeah, sorry, I only take Stripe, and it's some kind of communication between them, right? And then
But at the environment level, are we saying that you have to have a payment supplier or stub it out?
you do not have to, but the stub is optionally there because you don't. The only sort of how do I put this? You are the standard environment tracks cost, and it uses cost for computational purposes, like making sure that a large amount of AI tokens are not consumed is done by setting a upper limit on the cost of the action, for example. Now,
No, I can. Sorry.
if you want to pay for, if you are running your own standard environment and you're footing all the bills, then the payment supplier, you don't need an external payment supplier because you're covering all the bills. So the standard environment tracks cost and maintains balances and all that, but it doesn't force it upon anyone. A hosting provider that offers its services will force you to pay it in some way.
Right, but the thing is, majority of people who would build on this will expect a payment supplier. By stubbing it out, you're doing a bit of a Elon Musk. For example, right, I've just written a NAP saying if you sign up to the first and second constitutional whatever it is that he's paying off this $47 and million quid thing, it doesn't cost you anything. Then you don't need it. Well, you do need it in that example. That's a poor example. But say if it's just, I want you to do this, and all that matters is in my side. I'm just recording it. The fact that we've had this transaction. There's no money going backwards and forwards. This is entirely altruistic. This is, volunteering. For example, volunteering does not need a payment supplier. However, most people will need a payment supplier, and so you could stub it out and just say none. But by putting it into the environment standard, what we're doing is prompting, okay, so you're most likely going to want to have some kind of value exchange.
I feel like
of any kind.
I don't see where we're going here, buddy. Yes, that's right, and that's the end of it, right? That's it.
Yeah, Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
Basically, what I'm saying is you can stub out payment suppliers. You can stub out
Yeah,
API
buddy,
gateways.
you're
You
just
can.
saying the same thing again.
I know, I'm tired, man.
Why are you doing it?
Because I've been up fucking for 27 hours.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe it's time to call it. I mean, like that's
But okay, well, no, we're on a roll here. Okay, so let's keep going. So, corporate users, where do corporate users go?
corporate users go at the same level as any other user.
Yep.
Um,
And the
they're
user.
special or different insofar as they would be attached to corporate resellers. So an example of that is if I was an independent company that made a piece of SaaS software that ran on the standard environment, but I presented it to the world as like it was badged and labeled as my thing, I'm a corporate reseller because I am reselling the Dreamcatcher services and hosting and all that to
What? So kind
to
of
corporate
white
users.
labeling kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm white labeling the Dreamcatcher,
But
which
that's
is
a
a
Dreamcatcher level.
no.
Stack.
I think it's a user level thing because you just look like another user at that point. You're special because you're a big user, a power user, and you're also special because there are users that attach to you.
Right. So they don't need to be corporate. Users is over indexed. By corporate, you mean the person who sets up the system to get something like Dreamcatcher. So we are
So,
corporate users.
I don't think I mean that.
Okay.
I mean that you are rebadging and reselling the Dreamcatcher for a very specific purpose. Like, for example, when a Dreamcatcher user comes into the platform, they know they're interacting with the Dreamcatcher. Their account
Right.
is with the Dreamcatcher.
Oh, okay.
But
Right.
a corporate reseller, you would, let's say it was weather.com that was selling a SaaS app, and the users of weather.com, I was trying to call corporate users there, but they're basically, they think they're interacting with weather.com. They only want to interact with weather.com. They pay weather.com. Weather.com pays the Dreamcatcher.
Right. Okay. So I see where I think I don't disagree, but I think we're missing something. So it's there is an entity that pays for it, and by pay for it, what I mean is we've got the format, you've got the environment. The environment will always cost money. Who pays for even getting up to the point of running Dreamcatcher? So there is the supplier, I guess. There is the, it's us, right?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
Right. There's a supplier and a demander. The supplier is the one that's picking up the cost, and it's the demander that's paying the price. Corporate user sounds like the demander.
Right, but it's one step removed. A corporate user is the user of a corporate reseller, and the corporate reseller is a user of the Dreamcatcher.
Right, but that doesn't change any of the functionality. All that is the supplier, instead of selling to one user, is selling to a company.
Yep. Who's then selling to a
thing.
multitude of users.
It's the same thing. So it's again, it's where does the money flow? Who pays?
Yeah. So we could. I think that's an important set of users to illustrate on the context diagram, because those are quite likely to be the big payers in the system, and in particular, they are the kinds that would make really good first customers. Otherwise, we'll be going straight to consumer, and we all know how that goes at the start, right? It ain't pretty. But
Yeah.
if we can go to another entity first and resell to them, that's much stronger. So what Deno have done to fund Deno Deploy is they struck a deal with another large corporation. I think it was Netlify, which was like a pretty big developer tooling company, and their deal was that they actually supply the computing resources to all of Netlify. And so, yes, they built this, right?
That's exactly the point. Yeah.
Yeah. So they got this thing that you can, as a consumer, come along, and they're busy building out their direct-to-consumer business, but their backbone, their bread and butter, their bills are paid for by this big corporate user that's just marking up what they supply them.
So that really, in the Happy Path, that is who pays the bills of Dreamcatcher, just on the Happy Path, and who accepts the payments from, whether we resell or whatever, it doesn't really matter. A reseller is just basically the same as a single user, because at the money level, there's just money's being paid.
Yeah, at the money, yeah, exactly. At the money level, it just looks like a user. It gets a special mention because it's on selling the services, and the money will likely be large relative to a direct consumer.
Right. Okay. So we've got who pays who pays the cost and who pays the price. The price is the person who is consuming, and who pays the cost is the person who's meeting the demand. Okay. Yeah. I might mess around with that corporate users thing because.
Sure. But, I think you get the concept, though.
I do. Yeah.
All right. So that seems like it then. Sounds like we're done.
Again, back to my earlier, very much fumbled thing. Artifact. Where does artifact? Artifact is.
I think that's the standard environment.
Tools. Is that in the slab? Which slab does that?
I think that's the standard environment.
So that's in the JSON. No, it's
one up from the JSON standard.
So we've got JSON, which is the format. We've got environment, which is the what you need to do to run, and then there's a bunch of tools. Is that a third slab at the bottom level?
What bunch of tools? Where's the bunch of tools?
Everything that all the isolates that Artifact produces.
You mean all? Yeah. So that some of those, I think. Artifact, there's Artifact, the core, and then there's like this set of naps that are things that you probably want to do that we should do for you because we know how to do it best. And that's things like the files isolate, the reasoner, other such things like that.
It's weird, isn't it? Because this Artifact is at the moment is all a bit mushed. Some of them, like Reasoner, right?
Yeah. I think Artifact itself is actually, that is the standard environment. And then I think that the standard library of naps is just one set of occupants on the nap layer, where they're just like, you don't have to use these, you won't need to use them all the time. You will need to use Artifact all the time because that's what runs your stuff. But the standard library of naps are just useful things that we use a lot that you might use a lot too.
Right. So this is important. So some parts of Artifact are naps.
Yes.
Some are kind of OS level.
Some are some are a layer below because they present an environment within which you can run your naps.
Exactly. So if you turn up and saying, I've agreed with your JSON format, and I've got a simple system that agrees with that, and I've signed up to Deno and all the other things required in the environment, it's like, well, those two need to actually do stuff together. The minimum, it's almost like it's almost like bootstrapping, isn't it? There's a minimum part, a subpart of artifact as we've got at the moment, has to be there.
Yeah. There's a part that you need every time, and then
Yeah.
there's other parts
there's
that
other
you need
stuff
a
that-
lot of the time.
Yeah, and a lot of the time probably will bubble up to naps.
A lot of the time just sits in naps. Yeah.
Yeah.
All of the time sits at standard environment because
Right.
you can't not have it. But
So I've got a suggestion here. So in the same way as at that bottom layer, we've got the format, the JSON format. We've got the environment. So in order to run this format here, in order to make this work, you need these services available. You can choose whatever you want. And then there is a piece of code that just bootstraps you up so that you can actually even get to the point of writing Dreamcatcher.
yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yep. You won't be able to write the Dreamcatcher without having artifact plus a lot of the standard library, but not all of it.
Yeah, it's packages. It's well, it's not even packages. It's it's the code. It's the bootstrap code. In order to get
All right.
the environment to run the JSON files, it needs instructions because otherwise it's going to go. What are you talking about?
Yep. Okay. So now.
Yep.
Now what?
What else have we got? So let's go. JSR, yeah, done. NPM done. Crates, gateway, yeah. Artifact we just talked about. We talked about corporates. Yep. Builders, consumers, funders is very much inside of Dreamcatcher. Okay. What else did we?
I do think that they are. Yeah, that is actually Dreamcatcher level. Yeah, builders, consumers, funders, because they're participating in the incentives scheme or the incentives
Right.
component of the platform, right? Because otherwise, those three would be competing. If you just took the standard environment and ran it wrapped in a publicly listed company, for example, then your builders, consumers, and funders would be participating in that set of incentives, that incentive policy, which is separate to the Dreamcatcher incentive policy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, last question, and then I really got to go.
Yeah. Go.
If we listed a public company to raise some capital to build out some of these pieces that are laid out here, where would it go in a diagram?
I would say that. Fucking hell, man. You know, the best questions are always left to last. Okay, so we have a concept of the JSON, the environment, and the core artifact, and we've kind of just done that. We're now going to build Dreamcatcher NAP, and we think that's going to do all sorts of lovely things. Now, I guess, where do we stick the?
I think it has to be the only
pointer
place that
at
it can
it?
come in that's safe is to come in at the Dreamcatcher layer.
I think so, because they're not going to care
As a
about
funder.
who needs another format, right? We've got formats coming out of our ears.
Yeah, and so
But
that means that when that corporation comes online, we're going to be sitting here with a Deno hosting environment, a Stripe account, and whatever. That public company might very well want to run its own instance of that environment, or it needs to be comfortable leaving it up to us and dealing with all the conflicts of interest that go with that.
Yeah.
But we somehow need to keep it so that there's, hosting is kept separate from funders, because the funders do love to bend the hosting to exert will upon the ecosystem.
Yeah, but that's a conversation, because you could build your own, tin cluster and run this and still be compliant.
So
or-
what we really need is we need a hosting corporation that is purposefully set up to be not for profit, where it simply covers its bills. And what's more, we should be able to set up the Gateway Corporation to be. Actually, that's how we should do it. The Gateway Corporation has extra protection because if it's holding like 100 ventures within it, then the public company has no business taking over the Gateway Corporation.
What do you mean by benches?
Ventures, like
Oh,
projects.
sorry, I misheard. Sorry.
And then if that Gateway Corporation was, as part of its articles of incorporation, capable of making a venture that was guaranteed non-profit, then that could just be the hosting company. And so the Gateway Corporation could hold the hosting company as one of its internal ventures, and it can be set up to have these rules that make it not for profit, so that when a
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
corporate entity enters the scene and comes in as a funder, there's no way that the corporation is going to take over the gateway company, because the gateway company is set up to be,
Yeah, because we're just again follow the cash. The cash comes from usage.
yeah,
Which is
and
top.
we know that if you dial up usage or try to extract margin out of usage,
Yeah.
then you'll slow growth.
Right.
And what we really want is we want a good, reliable thing, right? Like a good, reliable hosting service. So I think the Gateway Corporation is strangely important, because that's what holds the hosters, and the initial choice of services that we make actually get held within that corporation as a trusted non-profit.
Now that sounds a lot like a bundle of services and rules and not-for-profits, etc., that comply with the environment level standard. Someone might choose to, try and skim at that, but we're not. We're saying in order to get Dreamcatcher to work.
Yeah, we're saying there needs to be at least one player in the field that's not trying to make a profit, so that everyone else can go about trying to make a profit.
Yeah, it's just so we can, actualize all the stuff up.
Yeah, and so
That's
that
not for sale.
that
Yeah.
corporate gateway needs to be set up in such a way that a public company could raise and be a funder and not be tempted to try and take over the Gateway Corporation.
Wouldn't the funder have, knowing that the gateway environment, which wraps the lowest level, in order to allow Dreamcatcher to work, wouldn't they be interested in Dreamcatcher, because then that's the innovation machine, and then who knows what is done above that.
No, but you
That's the
can't.
kinda cool thing.
Yeah, you can't really own that though, and corporations need to own something. So, what that would suggest then is we also need to set up two companies. One is the gateway, which holds all the stuff that we want nobody to touch, and then the second is separate, very separate from the Gateway Corporation, and that is our commercial arm, or our for-profit
Exactly.
thing, right?
Exactly.
And so what we would do then is we would put our money and our effort goes into that company, and we then reverse list that company on the stock exchange to get funding for it.
just so I'm absolutely clear, what do you mean by that company? Give it a name. Which one?
We will call that company Robot Army. Robot
So
Army
Robot Army
is
is
a
the Dreamcatcher layer, or is it the?
it's at the Dreamcatcher layer, and it is
Yeah,
a
yeah,
builder and a consumer. Sorry, a builder and a funder, and it
yeah,
seeks to
yeah,
satisfy and receive payments from consumers. In
exactly.
receiving payments, it also pays the Dreamcatcher profit share levy, which goes out to pay everyone who contributed. But
Yep.
its main goal is to build enough stuff that it is actually collecting large amounts of Dreamcatcher profit share,
Yeah. Now,
right? And then that's the thing
actually,
that we can go and
that's a raisable. That's raisable,
that's
right?
raisable. Yep, that's
That's
raisable right there.
that's an innovation
Okay.
machine right there. Now, the
Well,
question is,
yeah,
that's a
that's
bit like
raisable.
we're okay. Give me analogy time. That's a data center, right? But someone needs to have the infrastructure that actually puts the copper into getting the electricity, which is the lower level, which is at least one instance that agrees with the standard
Yeah,
that allows Dreamcatcher to run, and that still needs to tax Dreamcatcher, but can be set up as a non-profit. It's like nobody owns that, but it does need money.
yeah. Sorry, it's not non-profit. It's even more finesse than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's Dreamcatcher profit. And so basically, the Gateway Corporation needs to be set up in such a way that its articles of incorporation force all of the ventures that are hosted by it or held by it, sheltered by it, to adhere to the Dreamcatcher payment terms. And that means that the hoster is running under Dreamcatcher profit share terms.
Yes. However, the yes, basically, but they need to be separate. Dreamcatcher board cannot have anything to say about the Gateway board, because the Gateway board, those guys are only interested in making sure that the JSON standard, the environment standard, and so on are correct. And if there's any improvements and so on, people will get that, get paid, or whatever. There's not much overhead in providing a standard, but there is some.
There's a lot, but yeah, that's a separate
Yeah.
fight.
So
That one.
it's like you're joining a club, okay, and the gateway is the club. Now, inside that club, you're building the Dreamcatcher. Dreamcatcher is the innovation machine. Others are available, but this is the one we're doing. And that the gamble that we're seeing is the Dreamcatcher way of doing things is faster and easier than your standard startup horror that
Yeah.
we're well aware of.
Yep. All right. So that sort of lays out for me what we need to be able to charge people money and what
Yep.
we need to be able to create a vehicle that is fundable using traditional means, be that a crowdfunding, private equity, or a public listing. That little company is able to take in securities grade money, so it can make securities grade promises about the future of the system. In the meantime,
Again, sorry, that little company. Sorry, can you use the name? Is that
Robot Army,
Gateway or
Robot Army,
Right, right. Okay, Robot Army. Yep, got it.
and that's just
Yeah, yeah. And Gateway is untouchable. It just does what it is. It could even be a smart contract for all we care.
it needs to be a real world company because it needs to hold relationships with other legal entities.
Yes, but only needs to hold legal. It needs to have a legal relationship with anyone like us that we're building Robot Army Dreamcatcher. And assuming this, so there needs to be some kind of legal thing, a license or whatever at the very least, because what we're saying is we are building and selling and raising on an innovation machine, but by giving out a format to the world to use, that's up to them. But there will need to be a license agreement between the guys who do anything else, Dark Dreamcatcher, but using the same format, because the format is IP. The IP needs to be owned by something.
No, it doesn't. It's open source. It's given away.
No,
Nobody owns it. There's no license.
No. IP exists. Licenses give it away. It's a license that.
Mate, you're talking about licenses. I don't know why you're talking about licenses for a piece of open source software.
We'll come to that. But the point being, the gateway is untouchable. We're raising on the Dreamcatcher. In order to make the Dreamcatcher, we need to, do basically everything we've done or are about to do in order to make the gateway provide a format that we're going to adhere to and then build on using our choice of environments, and then hopefully with the cash coming into Dreamcatcher, let's market that and going, hey, everyone come here, and attribution, all that good stuff, and we're going to get lots of apps and money will flow and so on. But there, I'm agreeing, and there's two entities here, and they need to be there needs to be a firewall between them.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think we're done.
Well, that was emotional. But yeah, I think we are done. Well, when we talk tomorrow, which is, 10 hours away, I'll get a few more shitty diagrams up this, and so we can start actually thinking about what else we need in order to, because shit, what was that? Oh, that's sorry, alarm to get the dog. So that will give us similar to this kind of grist to the mill. Our outcome here is where does the funding come from? We had 4 choices that we went through yesterday. What's the best way of actually getting this off the ground? And the gateway, we kind of just need to set up and leave there standing, and then Dreamcatcher will be the first licensee that uses the IP that's owned by Gateway.
Yeah, I currently think the best path of funding is to make it so that using crypto, you can be a funder on any given package or on any given construction, but the tradability is locked until the platform can guarantee decentralization. And so that means that if you're investing in crypto, it is a non-liquid thing that you're buying into, but you can get early access to buying this stuff. It's just that there's no way that you're going to be able to trade it until the platform proves its decentralization, which makes it not a security. So
my gut agrees with that, but that's definitely like a 2-hour conversation.
Yeah, I know. And then the second thing is then this little entity, the Robot Army. That Robot Army entity just goes through whichever traditional funding method works, whether we take VC equity or crowdfunding or a public listing. My preference is a public listing, but either way, it doesn't really matter.
It says funding needed, and insert details here.
Yeah, that's right. And because it's a participant.
Okay, just before you go then, I know I went down a rabbit hole, which is good to catch early. Are you content that this was what you were looking for?
Yes, sir, I am. This is what I was looking for. This is what I was looking
Right.
for. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Are
good.
you are you are you clear on the difference now between where you were and where
Oh, it's
this
wildly
is?
different. Wildly
Right.
different.
Please don't run away when you're like, oh, it's messy, it's messy. Running away is the worst thing you could do.
I know, but I was like, yeah, I've done about 3 hours work on this, and it's probably going to take another, 5, 6 hours to get right. And it's like, I know it's all wrong, but it was a great, great catch that you gave me, saying, well, you don't need to spend that rest of that time because you're actually answering the wrong question. This is, between the two of us, probably in my head, it was again back to natural language. It's what I thought you asked for, but not what you meant. It's
Yep,
a
fair
world
enough.
of difference between it.
The
So,
lesson
yeah, it's a
is
good catch. It's a good catch.
anytime I hear anyone too afraid to show me what they're working on, I know for sure that it's wrong. Every
It's an
time.
interesting one. I've never heard that heuristic.
Every
That's a good
single
one, though.
time.
That's
Yeah.
a good one. I like that. I like that.
And I'd
Um,
say
oh,
that it's because deep inside you know you're wrong too.
Well, no. The reason I was reticent is because I thought it was right, but I knew it wasn't complete. And I thought, right, you give me another 5 hours, and I'll get it complete, and then that would answer the question which I thought you asked, but that wasn't you. You know, that's what I thought you asked,
All
but that wasn't what you meant. Yeah.
Either way, this is the thing. And
Okay, good.
once we
I'm
have
happy
this
with
thing,
this.
once we have this
Happy with this.
thing, we can lay out we can lay out what we've got, what we need to have, and actually start estimating some build progress here.
Right. Well, today then what we'll do is, as is my wont, I'll take what we've talked about in terms. Well, I'll not go through them again. I'll just do a whole bunch of scrappy diagrams so that we can, without too much effort, figure out
Scrappy's
whether.
good, dude. Scrappy's
Yeah.
real good.
I love Scrappy.
These pieces of paper are just perfect. I wouldn't spend too much time at all. We're trying to skim the whole thing as though we were just starting from scratch.
Yeah, I probably need to buy some pens with different colors. Just then.
Color's good, dude.
That might, I know.
You
I
know,
know.
the odd
But
highlighter.
I've only got black. You can have any color you want. as long as it's
Colored
black.
pencil, something like that. Anyway, I'll stop the recording here because I think we're done here.
Yeah, I think we are. Nice.